Cybercriminals today are smarter, and they're using the power of AI. From fake voices scamming millions to ransomware predicting your every move, the game has changed. Our team reveals the latest cutting-edge threats and what you can do to stay ahead.
Ever sit down with your morning coffee and check your emails? Seems pretty harmless, right? But in the time it takes to scroll through your inbox, thousands of cyber attacks are launched globally. It's a hidden war unfolding at lightning speed. And today we're going deep into the trenches of cybercrime in 2024. We've got reports, analysis, and real-world examples to understand just how big this problem really is and what makes it so dangerous.
It is a pervasive threat, that's for sure. We used to think of cybercrime as something shadowy, happening in the dark corners of the internet. But it's exploded into a global industry, impacting everyone, from individuals to businesses, and even entire nations.
Okay, so let's get a sense of the scale here. I've got this stack of reports. That painted a pretty grim picture. What stood out to you?
The sheer economic force of cybercrime is astounding. Global losses doubled in 2024, hitting a staggering 10 billion euros. That makes it the third largest global economy, right behind the US and China. This isn't kids in basements anymore. It's organized, sophisticated, and incredibly profitable.
That's mind-blowing. 10 billion euros. It's hard to even grasp. But this isn't just about money, right? It's impacting our daily lives in a very real way.
Absolutely. We're seeing cybercrime woven into the fabric of society. 1 in 5 crimes worldwide are now committed online. And it hits close to home, too. Spain saw a 25% increase in cybercrime, making it the 5th most affected country globally.
So no one is immune. We're all potential targets. But let's dig into the specifics. What kind of attacks are we seeing most often?
Ransomware is a huge problem. Spain saw a 38% surge in these attacks in just the first half of 2024. And these criminals are bold. Remember that record-breaking 72 million euro ransom payment? Organizations are increasingly willing to pay, but it's a dangerous game.
It feels like a no-win situation. Pay the ransom and you're funding more attacks. Refuse and you risk losing critical data or facing major disruption. It's a tough call.
Hey, want our free AI dope top AI tools that we use? Chat below. It's our live Google Sheets packed with over 100 killer tools, video, music, photos, AI voices, productivity, script writing, YouTube hacks, captions, the works. Always growing. Live Google Sheet. Always free. AI dope top AI tools that we use. Download and chat below. Back to the show.
But I'm curious, how are these attacks actually happening? What are the methods behind this cyber madness?
You might be surprised to learn that social engineering is still the most common tactic. Despite all the technological advances, it's still about manipulating people, exploiting their trust, curiosity, or fear to gain access.
So it's not always about hacking into systems, it's about hacking into human psychology.
Exactly. Phishing scams are a classic example, and they're getting more sophisticated all the time. They might impersonate trusted companies, even friends and family, to steal passwords, financial info, or install malware.
So it's not just about being tech savvy, it's about being aware of the psychological tricks they use. But I imagine technology is playing a bigger role too. What about things like AI?
AI is a game changer. It allows attacks to be more targeted and personalized, which makes them much more effective.
Targeted, so it's not just about casting a wide net anymore.
Not necessarily. Imagine a phishing email that not only looks completely legitimate, but also uses specific details about your work or personal life. It's hard to spot the deception when it feels so personalized, and AI makes that possible.
That's scary. It's like they're reading our minds and tailoring their attacks to our specific vulnerabilities.
It's getting harder to separate fact from fiction. And there's another worrying application of AI, deepfakes.
Deepfakes. I've heard of those. That's the technology that can create incredibly realistic fake videos, right?
Yeah.
But how is that being used in cybercrime?
They're being used for phishing scams,
Yeah.
voice phishing. Cybercriminals can use AI to clone someone's voice, maybe your boss or a colleague, to trick you into giving up sensitive information.
So they could literally call you sounding exactly like someone you trust and manipulate you into doing something you wouldn't normally do. That's chilling.
It highlights how AI blurs the lines between reality and fabrication, making it harder than ever to know what's real.
Okay, so with these increasingly sophisticated attacks, who's most at risk? Is it just big companies with deep pockets?
While large companies invest heavily in cybersecurity, small and medium-sized businesses often can't keep up, making them prime targets. They might have less security, making them easier targets for criminals looking for a quick win.
So it's like the digital equivalent of robbing a mom and pop shop instead of Fort Knox. Less risk,
but potentially still a decent payout.
But it's not just about size. Certain industries are attractive because of the data they hold.
Like what kind of industries?
Think about sectors like industrial manufacturing, healthcare, and technology. They hold vast amounts of valuable data, from intellectual property to sensitive patient records. And that makes them high-value targets.
We've also seen a surge in attacks on the energy sector. That seems particularly worrying, given how critical it is to our infrastructure.
Absolutely. The Repsol energy company attack in September is a stark reminder of how vulnerable we are. And incidents like the Iberdrola data leak impacting hundreds of thousands of customers show that no one is truly immune.
It's a stark reminder that this isn't just an abstract threat. It has real-world consequences for individuals and businesses. But I think sometimes it's hard for people to connect those dots. It's easy to think, oh, that's a problem for big companies, or I'm careful online, so I'm not at risk. But that's not the reality, is it? Not at all. It's crucial to connect these trends back to the listener's life. While headlines about massive breaches can feel distant, the reality is that cybercrime can impact each and every one of us in very personal ways.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we make it real for people?
Imagine this. Your personal data, everything from your online banking details to your social media accounts, is stolen and sold on the dark web. What could that mean for your financial security, your online privacy, even your reputation?
Okay, now you're hitting close to home. It's easy to feel invincible online, but in reality, we're all potential targets, no matter how tech-savvy we think we are.
Exactly, and that's why it's crucial to understand the threats, recognize the tactics, and take steps to protect ourselves. This isn't about becoming paranoid, it's about being informed and empowered.
So how do we fight back? What can we do to protect ourselves in this digital Wild West?
The good news is there are things we can do. It's about adopting a layered approach, combining technical measures with heightened awareness.
Okay, let's break it down. What are the essentials?
From a technical standpoint, think of the basics. Regularly updating security patches and changing passwords. These are simple steps, but they're like locking your doors and windows. Basic digital hygiene.
You'd be surprised how many people neglect those simple precautions.
Yeah.
But you're saying technology alone isn't enough.
Right. We also need to cultivate critical thinking and use common sense online. It's about being skeptical, questioning suspicious emails, and thinking twice before clicking on links that seem too good to be true.
So it's about being proactive, not just reactive, not just relying on technology to protect us, but also using our own judgment and intuition.
Exactly, and that's where training and education come in. We need to build a culture of cybersecurity awareness, both at home and in the workplace. We need open conversations like this one, demystifying the subject and giving people the knowledge and tools they need to stay safe.
Knowledge is power, especially in the digital age. But I love this idea of cybersecurity as a lifestyle, not just a set of technical measures.
Think of it like taking care of your physical health. We brush our teeth, eat healthy, and exercise to stay physically fit. We need to develop healthy digital habits to stay safe online, too. It's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
I love that analogy. It really drives home the point that we need to be proactive and make cybersecurity part of our daily routine. We wouldn't leave our front door unlocked, so why would we leave our digital doors wide open?
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our online safety and making conscious choices to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. But before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I have a question. We've talked a lot about the current state of cybercrime, but what about the future? What keeps you up at night when you think about the threats on the horizon?
Honestly, the continued integration of AI into cyber attacks, what we're seeing now is just the beginning. As AI becomes more sophisticated, it's going to empower cybercriminals in ways we can't even fully grasp yet.
We talked about deepfakes and targeted phishing, but it sounds like there's even more to worry about.
Absolutely. We could see AI being used to create entirely new forms of malware, capable of learning and adapting to our security measures in real time. That would make them incredibly difficult to detect and even harder to stop.
That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? But the line between science fiction and reality is blurring rapidly, especially in the realm of cybersecurity. The cat and mouse game between cybersecurity professionals and criminals is about to get a whole lot more intense.
So we're entering an era where AI could be both the greatest weapon and the greatest vulnerability in the fight against cybercrime. And the stakes are only getting higher.
That's the reality we're facing.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. But it also motivates me to stay informed and stay ahead of the curve. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next.
I agree. Being informed and proactive is our best defense.
Well, folks, we're going to take a quick break. But don't go anywhere. When we come back in part 2 of our deep dive, we'll delve even deeper into this world of AI-powered cybercrime, exploring the potential threats, the ethical implications, and what we can do to prepare for this brave new world. Stay tuned.
See you in part 2. Welcome back to our deep dive into cybercrime.
Before the break, we were talking about AI and its role in this whole cybercrime landscape.
And I think it's important to explore that further, particularly the ethical implications of using such powerful technology for malicious purposes.
Right, because AI is often touted as a force for good, but in the wrong hands, it feels like it could be incredibly dangerous.
It absolutely could. We're entering uncharted territory here, and it's raising some really tough questions.
Like what are some of the ethical concerns that are top of mind for you?
Well, think about deepfakes for a second. If AI can create hyper-realistic videos, that can deceive even the most discerning eye. What does that do to our sense of trust and authenticity online?
It's like the whole foundation of our online interactions is being eroded.
Exactly. How can we believe anything we see or hear online if AI can manipulate reality so convincingly?
It's a scary thought. It feels like we're in an arms race, where technology is constantly outpacing our ability to understand and control it.
There's definitely an element of that, but I think it's crucial to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or evil.
So the responsibility lies with us, the humans who are developing and using it.
Precisely. We need to guide its development and ensure that it's used responsibly, but that's easier said than done.
Right, because how do you control something as powerful as AI? How do you prevent it from falling into the wrong hands?
It's a complex challenge, but there are a few key areas we can focus on.
Okay, I'm all ears. What can we do?
First, we need to invest in AI research and development. That prioritizes ethical considerations.
So not just focusing on what AI can do, but also how it should be used.
Exactly. We need to bake ethical guardrails into AI systems from the ground up, rather than trying to fix things after they've gone wrong. Transparency and accountability are crucial here.
I like that. Proactive rather than reactive. It's like building safety features into a car before it even rolls off the assembly line.
Another vital area is education and awareness. We need to educate the public about the potential risks of AI-powered cybercrime and empower individuals with the knowledge and skills to protect themselves.
I thought that old saying, knowledge is power. The more we understand about the threats, the better equipped we'll be to defend against them.
Exactly. And this education needs to start early. We need to be teaching kids about online safety and digital citizenship from a young age, just as we teach them about physical safety and responsible behavior in the real world.
It's not something we can just assume they'll figure out on their own. They need guidance and support to navigate this complex digital landscape.
Absolutely. And finally, we need to foster collaboration and information sharing between governments, industry, and the research community.
So breaking down silos and working together to share information and best practices, that makes sense.
Cybercrime is a global problem, and it requires a global response. We need to be pooling our resources, expertise, and insights to stay ahead of the curve and develop proactive solutions.
It's like a global task force, uniting to fight a common enemy.
That's a great way to put it. The stakes are incredibly high. But I believe that if we work together, we can harness the power of AI for good and mitigate the risks.
I'm hopeful too, but let's be realistic. AI isn't the only thing shaping the future of cybercrime. What other trends are you seeing that we need to be aware of?
One trend that I find particularly interesting and concerning is the growing convergence of cybercrime and physical crime.
Convergence? What do you mean by that? I thought we were talking about the digital world.
We are, but those lines are blurring. We used to think of cybercrime and physical crime as separate categories, but increasingly we're seeing them overlap.
So cybercriminals are stepping out of the digital world and into the real world, or vice versa.
Both, actually. Imagine a scenario where a group of criminals hacks into a city's traffic control system to create a diversion while they rob a bank.
Whoa, that sounds like something out of a movie.
It might sound far-fetched, but these kinds of attacks are becoming more common. Or they could use stolen personal data to impersonate someone and gain access to their home or workplace.
So it's not just about stealing data or money online anymore. They're using technology to extend their reach into the physical world.
Exactly. And as the Internet of Things continues to expand, connecting more and more devices to the internet, the opportunities for these types of attacks are only going to multiply.
So everything from smart homes and self-driving cars to critical infrastructure like power grids and hospitals, could potentially become targets.
That's right. And that's why it's so important to think about cybersecurity holistically.
Not just as an IT issue, but as a fundamental part of safety and security in the 21st century.
Exactly. It needs to be woven into the fabric of our lives, both online and offline.
Okay, so we've talked about the evolving threats, the ethical implications, and the need for collaboration. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. What can our listeners do as individuals to protect themselves in this increasingly complex and interconnected world?
That's a great question. It can feel overwhelming, but there are practical steps you can take to boost your own cybersecurity posture. It starts with developing good digital habits and adopting a proactive mindset. Think of it like building a personal security system, layer by layer.
I like that analogy. So what are some of the essential layers of this personal security system?
First and foremost, be mindful of what you share online. Think before you post, and be careful about the information you make publicly available. On social media or other platforms, you don't want to hand criminals the keys to your digital kingdom.
Right, because that information can be used to target you with scams or social engineering attacks.
Exactly. And speaking of passwords, use strong, unique passwords for all your online accounts. Don't use the same password for multiple sites. And consider using a password manager to help you generate and store complex passwords securely.
Password managers are a game changer. They make it so much easier to manage all those different passwords.
They really do. And whenever possible, enable two-factor authentication. This adds an extra layer of security by requiring you to enter a unique code usually sent to your phone, in addition to your password.
It can be a little annoying sometimes, but the added peace of mind is worth it.
Absolutely. Another important tip is to be wary of suspicious emails, links, or attachments. Don't click on anything that looks even remotely questionable. And be especially cautious of unsolicited messages or requests. That seemed too good to be true.
If this sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That's a good rule of thumb for life in general.
And finally, keep your software and devices up to date. Install those security updates and patches. It's like getting your annual flu shot. A simple way to boost your digital immunity.
So it's all about building good digital hygiene habits, just like we do in the physical world.
Exactly. And remember, cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination. The threat landscape is constantly evolving, so we need to be constantly learning and adapting.
It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. We need to be vigilant and proactive.
Well said. The more informed and prepared we are, the better we can protect ourselves and those around us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored the dark side of the digital world, the threats, the vulnerabilities, and the potential for things to get even more intense.
It's a sobering picture for sure, but I think it's important to remember that there's hope. The cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving, and there are brilliant minds working tirelessly to develop solutions, to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
Okay, so let's shift gears from doom and gloom to solutions. What's giving you hope? What are some of the most promising developments in the cybersecurity world that you're excited about?
One area that's really exploding is the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in cybersecurity. And I'm not just talking about how criminals are using it, but also how the good guys, the cybersecurity professionals, are leveraging AI to defend against attacks.
So it's like a digital arms race, with both sides wielding the power of AI.
Exactly. AI can analyze massive amounts of data, identify patterns, and detect anomalies. That could signal a cyber attack in progress. This allows security teams to respond much faster, potentially preventing or mitigating damage before it spreads.
So it's like having a superpowered security guard who can see everything happening across your network and instantly spot anything suspicious.
That's a great analogy. And AI can also automate routine security tasks, freeing up human analysts to focus on more complex and strategic challenges.
So AI is handling the grunt work, letting cybersecurity professionals become more like strategic commanders, overseeing the battlefield and making those critical decisions.
Precisely. And that's essential because as cyber attacks get more sophisticated, we need human expertise more than ever to outsmart and outmaneuver the attackers.
It's like a high-stakes game of chess, where you need to anticipate your opponent's moves and develop counter strategies to stay ahead.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating development: threat intelligence sharing.
Threat intelligence sharing. I've heard that term thrown around, but I'm not sure I fully understand it. What does it actually mean?
In the past, organizations often kept their cybersecurity challenges to themselves. They were reluctant to share information about threats they were facing.
Kind of like a don't ask, don't tell policy for cyber threats.
Yeah, exactly. But that's changing. More and more organizations are realizing that collaboration is key. By sharing information about threats, they can collectively build a more comprehensive understanding of the landscape and develop more effective defenses.
So it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. By working together, everyone benefits.
Exactly. Threat intelligence sharing platforms allow organizations to anonymously share information about attacks they've experienced, malware they've detected, suspicious activity they've observed, all the things they're seeing on the front lines. This shared knowledge helps everyone.
It's like having a global network of cybersecurity experts working together to protect us all. A kind of neighborhood watch for the digital world.
That's a great way to put it. And this kind of collaboration is essential, especially as the lines between nation-states and criminal organizations continue to blur in cyberspace.
Right, because we're not just talking about individual hackers anymore. We're facing sophisticated, well-funded adversaries who might even have the backing of governments.
Exactly. And that's why the role of government and law enforcement is
Yeah.
becoming increasingly important in the fight against cybercrime.
Okay, let's talk about that. What role can governments play in enhancing cybersecurity? Is it just about catching the bad guys?
It's more than that. Governments can create legal frameworks and regulations that deter cybercrime and hold perpetrators accountable. This means updating laws to address new types of cybercrime, strengthening international cooperation to prosecute cross-border offenses, and giving law enforcement the resources to investigate and pursue cybercriminals effectively.
So it's about creating a legal environment where cybercrime isn't tolerated, and criminals know they'll face consequences.
Precisely. But governments can also play a crucial role in education and awareness. They can launch public awareness campaigns to educate citizens about online risks, support training programs, and work with industry to develop cybersecurity standards and best practices.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, deterring criminals through law enforcement, empowering citizens through education, and fostering collaboration between government, industry, and researchers.
Exactly. It's a complex challenge that demands multifaceted response.
And what about businesses and organizations? They're often the targets of these attacks. What can they do to strengthen their defenses?
Cybersecurity needs to be a top priority for any organization, not just an afterthought, or something delegated to the IT department.
It needs to be part of their DNA, embedded in their culture.
Exactly. And that starts with leadership. Leaders need to make cybersecurity a strategic imperative, invest in the right resources and expertise, and create a culture of awareness where everyone understands the risks and takes responsibility for protecting data and systems.
So it's not just about technology, it's about people. Creating a human firewall where everyone is aware and empowered.
Absolutely. But of course, technology plays a crucial role too. Organizations need to implement robust security measures like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, anti-malware, software data encryption, the whole arsenal of tools.
It's like building a digital fortress to protect their valuable assets.
But even the strongest fortress can be breached. That's why it's so important to have a plan for when things go wrong. Organizations need to develop and test incident response plans so they can respond quickly and effectively if an attack does occur.
So it's not just about preventing attacks, but also about knowing how to react and recover if one happens.
Exactly. A well-rehearsed incident response plan can minimize damage, reduce downtime, and help the organization get back on its feet faster.
It's like a fire drill for the digital world.
And finally, we can't forget about employee training and education. People are often the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. Employees need to be trained to spot phishing scams, avoid clicking on suspicious links, and follow best practices for password security and data handling.
So they become human firewalls,
Yeah.
capable of recognizing and responding to threats.
Exactly. When organizations combine strong technical measures with a culture of awareness and a well-trained workforce, they significantly reduce their risks.
It sounds like there's a lot we can do. It's not a hopeless situation.
Not at all. The more we understand the threats and the solutions, the better prepared we'll be. And if you want another AI dope deep dive, check this next video and ask yourself, how lucky are we to live in these AI dope times?